Today, I'm going to teach you and show you everything you need to know to become more comfortable with diminished harmony. Now, diminished harmony might feel difficult at first because it's a lot different than dealing with major keys and minor keys. We have to think about diminished scales, diminished arpeggios, and improvising with diminished harmony in a different way. And for context, my name is Michael Hudson Casanova. I help saxophonists become more confident improvisers through my Improvisation Excellence program. I myself am a saxophonist, improviser, and music educator with over 10 years of playing and teaching experience. So let's dive in and talk about some diminished stuff. So here's a simple PDF I made some years ago to help my students understand diminished scales and diminished harmony a lot better, and I find that it really works. The first thing to note is the fact that we are dealing with an 8-note scale. Now compare this to major and minor, which are 7-note sounds, 7-note scales. And as a result, you can have 12 major scales, 12 melodic minor scales, 12 harmonic minor scales. That's not the case for the diminished scale. So the diminished scale is something that we call a mode of limited transposition, which means it can only be transposed so many times before you start getting the same notes over and over again. And I'll show you why. So there are only 3 diminished scales. We can build a diminished scale on C, we can build a diminished scale on C sharp, and we can build a diminished scale on D, but as soon as we go up another half step, we're back down here at E flat, and we get the exact same notes as we got in the C diminished scale. That is what it means to be a mode of limited transposition, right? We can only transpose it so many times, unlike major and minor scales, which we can transpose 12 times for every note we have in our Western music language. Now, the reason this happens is because we have this repeating pattern of whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, which divides our 12-note music system into equal parts. And when we do that, that's when we get a mode of limited transposition here. So that's why the diminished scale works the way it does, sounds the way it does. I'll play through these for you now. So at the top there, I just went back up to C and then went back down. I'll play C sharp now. And D. Of course, it's great to practice these multiple octaves. And it's also great to practice their respective arpeggios. So D, F, A flat, B natural would be my D diminished 7 arpeggio, which I can practice multiple octaves all the way up and down the horn. Going back down a half step, C sharp, E, G, B flat would be my C sharp diminished 7 arpeggio. And then back down to C. Notice that I get this kind of repetitive, boxy sound. It's because those intervals are all a minor third apart, right? Minor third, minor third, minor third, and then we repeat. If we go up a minor third, we're at this C, and then that pattern keeps repeating. So that's why the diminished scale sounds like that. It doesn't sound like the major arpeggios, the major chords, major 7, minor 7. That's because those chords have different intervals separating each note. This one, again, divides our 12-note system into equal parts of 4 minor thirds. So the first step to actually implementing the diminished scale is getting really familiar with the scales and arpeggios themselves. So practice these up and down just like you would major scales. Start them on different notes. So even though, I'm practicing the same 3 scales over and over again, it takes some time and practice to develop flexibility with them. So definitely start it on E flat, right? And hear the E flat on the bottom, and then G flat, hear the G flat on the bottom. These are all your whole, half, diminished scales because we're starting with a whole step and then a half step. Now, you're also going to notice these dominant 7 flat 9 chords above the notes in between the diminished 7 chords, right? The reason I put those there is because the half whole diminished scales, which contain the exact same notes but just start with a half step instead of a whole step, are significant as well because those outline your diminished dominant harmony, right? Whenever you see a dominant 7 flat 9 chord on a lead sheet, or if the piano player or guitar player tells you I'm going to play a flat 9 on this dominant chord, that means you should immediately think diminished dominant, and that's the same harmony conversation we're having right now. Diminished scales, diminished dominant harmony, it's all contained in this PDF here. So if you see D7 flat 9, you're playing this scale starting on D. If you see A7 flat 9, you're playing this scale starting on A. And that original arpeggio that starts on B flat or C sharp or wherever you want to start it is still significant, right? This diminished arpeggio is still very significant. So let's say you're seeing an A7 flat 9 that is resolving to a D major or a D minor chord, then you can play this scale. You can play this arpeggio that starts on C sharp or B flat. This is what diminished harmony is all about. It's taking this really tense, boxy, interesting sound and releasing it, resolving to major or minor, because all of these chords, the dominant chords and the diminished 7 chords, are wanting to go somewhere. They're wanting to resolve. A theory professor told me once that they thought of diminished 7 chords or dominant 7 flat 9 chords kind of like connective tissue for other more landing place chords in the course of a tune. So if you look at a rhythm changes, if you know what that is in jazz, you'll see like a B flat major followed by a B diminished chord up to a C minor chord. So that's 1 followed by flat 2 diminished followed by 2 minor 7, okay? Really common to see that kind of progression on a jazz standard. So I hope this was helpful. You're going to find this PDF down in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe if this was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Happy shedding and happy learning your diminished harmony.